I'd always liked the quiet of the woods, the kind of silence that wraps around you like a blanket. No cars, no voices, just wind pushing trees into low whispers, maybe the distant hoot of an owl or a crack of branches under some unknown animal's step. It calmed me, even after everything I'd been through. That's why I took the solo trip in the first place. After my younger brother died in a motorcycle accident, I couldn't handle people. The condolences, the way they looked at me like I was the next one in line to die. I just wanted out. I rented a remote cabin deep in the Appalachian woods, far from any town. No neighbors within miles, just a dirt road barely wide enough for my SUV, winding through thick trees that swallowed all daylight once the sun dipped. The cabin was basic. No Wi-Fi, no TV, no cell signal. It was meant for hunters but perfect for someone like me. I got there late afternoon, sun hanging low. As I stepped out, I noticed something weird. Total silence. Not just quiet, silence. No birds, no rustling. Just this stillness that made my skin tighten. I brushed it off, blaming my overactive mind, and carried my bags inside. The cabin smelled like old wood and dust, but it was clean enough. Just a bed, fireplace, small kitchen, and one bathroom with a creaky mirror above the sink that looked warped like it had been heat damaged. I lit a fire, made canned soup, and sat with a book, trying to relax. Around midnight, I heard it. A knock. Not at the door. On the wall. The outside wall. Just one knock. Firm, deliberate. I froze, held my breath, and waited. Nothing followed. I told myself it was probably a tree branch or maybe a raccoon. The wind had picked up, but it didn't feel right. I went to bed around 2 a.m., a hunting knife under my pillow, just in case. I didn't sleep well. Every time I started drifting, I thought I heard footsteps crunching leaves just outside, slow and pacing. But every time I got up to check, there was nothing. Morning came. I stepped outside, heart still hammering, and saw footprints. Bare feet, large, deep prints in the dirt, walking around the cabin in full circles. My mouth went dry. They didn't come from anywhere and didn't lead anywhere, just around and around the cabin. I went back in, locked everything, sat on the edge of the bed trying to make sense of it. Then I heard a new sound, breathing, right behind the wall. Not loud, but close, like someone standing flush against the outside of the cabin, just breathing. I grabbed the knife and opened the door fast. Nothing. No one. But the breathing stopped the second I stepped out. I stayed out for hours that day, hiking in wide circles, trying to see if anyone was camping nearby or pulling a prank. Nothing. I was totally alone. I returned before sunset and found something waiting for me. A small wooden carving placed on the front step. It was crudely shaped like a man, head slightly tilted, arms pointed outward. And carved into the chest was a single word. Listen. I left it on the porch and went inside, locking every window. That night I didn't sleep. The knocking returned. This time 3 knocks, then 4, then silence, then again, only louder. I turned off the lights, sat in total darkness with the knife clenched in my hand. At 3:12 a.m., I heard someone whisper my name through the wall. Not from the outside. From inside the wall. Liam, it said. My body froze. That was my brother's voice. Let me in, Liam. My eyes welled up. It sounded exactly like him. I need to come in. I said nothing. The wall stayed quiet. Then the voice said, You left me. You shouldn't have left me. The voice grew angry, aggressive, like it knew something I didn't. You're not real, I whispered to myself. And then the wall split, not cracked, split. A long, jagged line like something pushing through from the inside. I ran out of the cabin barefoot, ran until my legs gave out, until daylight cracked through the trees and I collapsed on the forest floor gasping like I'd never breathed before. When I returned hours later, the cabin looked different, like it had aged 30 years overnight. Wood rotted, roof sagging, windows shattered. Inside, everything was covered in dust. The bed was stripped, the fireplace blackened. I found my backpack in the same spot, but the food was expired. My watch had stopped. My phone battery had burst. I ran to the road, walked until a truck picked me up. When I asked what day it was, the driver said, "You've been out here over a week. Rangers were gonna start searching tomorrow." But I'd only been there one night. Back in town, I checked the rental site. The cabin listing was gone. The company had no record of the address. I called the park service. They said no cabin ever existed at those coordinates. When I went back with the guide, there was nothing there but a crumbling stone foundation and a broken wooden sign with one word etched in rotted lettering. Listen. That night, as I lay in my bed at home, I heard it again. The foam. I've done solo camping for most of my adult life, and nothing ever really scared me. Until last fall. I'm not talking about bears or wolves or getting lost in the woods. I'm talking about something that made me leave everything behind in the middle of the night and swear I'd never go back. It started when I found a location online posted by a group called Wander Deep. It wasn't an official campground, more of an off-the-map site passed between survivalists and hardcore hikers. The photos were beautiful. Dense pine forest, a small lake with fog curling off it, and a clear patch of grass perfect for tents. The coordinates weren't listed directly. You had to solve a riddle to get there, which should have been a red flag, but I thought it was just part of the experience. It took me 6 hours of hiking through unmarked trails to reach the place, and by the time I got there, the sun was already dipping. The site was exactly like the pictures, almost too perfect. Still water, no wind, not a single bird in the air. It felt fake, like someone had carefully set it up for a magazine cover. I set up camp, cooked a meal, and settled in. Around 10 p.m., I started hearing a soft metallic clicking sound. Not loud, not regular, just an occasional tick-tick, like a Zippo lighter flicking shut. I looked around but saw nothing. No animals, no people. I convinced myself it was tree branches rubbing or maybe bugs. But it came again. Louder. I turned on my flashlight and swept the woods. That's when I saw it. A trail cam strapped to a tree about 20 feet away, pointed directly at my tent. Not just any trail cam. This thing was wrapped in vines and covered in painted markings, symbols that looked like crude eyes and spirals carved into the casing. I approached slowly, and as I reached up to inspect it, I noticed more cameras, 5, maybe 6, all hidden around the site, all pointing inward. Someone had been watching this place, watching me. I took out my knife and cut one down. It didn't fall. It stayed there, hanging midair like something was holding it from the other side. The forest went dead, silent. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, and returned to the tent. I thought about packing up, but figured I'd just wait till morning. I barely slept. The clicking sound came back, louder, like dozens of Zippos flicking open and shut, forming a rhythm. Then I heard footsteps, barefoot, fast, circling the tent. I froze inside, knife gripped, afraid to breathe. The steps stopped, and something pressed against the tent wall from outside. 5 fingers, pushing in so hard the shape of each nail showed through the fabric. Then a second hand. Then a third. They just stayed there, not moving. After maybe 5 minutes, they vanished. At dawn, I came out shaking. There were no footprints in the dirt, but a new object sat outside the tent. An old VHS tape wrapped in red thread. Written in black marker, "Play me when you get home." I packed up and left without even eating. On the hike back, I realized something else disturbing. The trail had changed. The markings I'd made with flagging tape were gone. The trees looked the same but weren't. It took me hours longer to find my car. When I finally reached home, I locked my doors, pulled the blinds, and dug out my old VCR. The tape was old and warped, static for the first minute. Then a video of me, sleeping in the tent from the night before. The footage had been edited with slow zooms and weird cuts, like someone had taken time to build tension. I saw myself toss and turn, then pause, then zoom. Then it jumped to another angle, a high shot like from a tree. Then another, inside the tent. A shot that showed my face from inches away as I slept. Someone had been in the tent with me, filming. My mouth went dry. The next scene showed me waking up and walking around the site. Then came the worst part. A split-second flash of multiple people standing among the trees, motionless, wearing burlap sacks over their heads, holding hands in a circle around the campsite. The video ended with one frame, a single word carved into wood. Stay. I took the tape to police, and they basically brushed it off, said it was probably some YouTuber prank or edited hoax. They didn't even file a report. I posted on a survival forum to warn others. A week later, I got a message from a user with a scrambled name saying, "You weren't supposed to leave." They sent me a link to a private live stream showing a campsite. The same one, from the same angle. And someone was already there. New camper. Same tent as mine. The stream was quiet at first. Then came the clicking sounds. The comments were filled with people typing rituals, weird phrases like circle forms, time bends, and feed the lens. I closed the site, burned the VHS, and sold all my camping gear the next day. I haven't gone back to the woods since. But sometimes, in my apartment, I hear a faint clicking sound. And every so often, my TV turns itself on at 3:33 a.m. I used to believe I was a rational man. I wasn't someone who believed in ghosts or the supernatural. I always thought everything had an explanation, until I got stuck in the woods that weren't supposed to exist on any map. It happened last summer, during what was meant to be a short hiking retreat to clear my head after my divorce. I was emotionally worn out, mentally blank, and desperate for silence. I found a mention of Ashfall Grove on an old Reddit thread, buried deep in a forgotten hiking forum. No photos, no directions, just someone saying, "You don't find it, unless it wants you to." I took it as a joke, but a few replies later, someone had dropped vague coordinates and wrote, "Go alone. Go tired. Go when you're at your lowest." It sounded ridiculous, but that exact combination of words felt like a personal attack. Like they were written for me. So I loaded up my gear, didn't tell anyone where I was going, and followed the GPS as close as it would allow. After the paved roads disappeared, it was just miles of dense trees, broken fences, and a strange black moss coating the rocks. I parked where the dirt road ended and walked. The air was wrong. Heavier, not quiet, just delayed. When I dropped a stick, the sound didn't echo until a second later, but I kept going. After 2 hours of walking, I came across an opening. Not a clearing exactly, but a circular space with perfectly spaced trees that looked like they'd been planted centuries ago in a deliberate formation. That was my first red flag. The second was that the moss was gone here. The third was when I turned around and couldn't find the trail I'd just walked. It had vanished. I wasn't lost. I was removed. Still, I set up my tent. I told myself I was overthinking, paranoid, imagining things. But deep down, I knew I had crossed into something that didn't follow regular rules. That night, I heard my own voice calling me from outside the tent. Not someone mimicking me. It was my exact tone, my exact breathing, whispering, "Come look," over and over. I stayed inside. At dawn, I opened the flap. The campfire I had never lit was now burning, and sitting next to it, back turned, was me, or something wearing me. I couldn't move. My legs locked. The figure slowly stood up, same height, same clothes, same scar on my right hand. It turned around and smiled, but its eyes were wrong. No white, just a flat gray like wet ash. I blinked and it was gone. I thought maybe I was having a breakdown, so I packed up and ran. No trail, no direction, just trees forever. I tried to use the compass. The needle spun like it was on a fan. I climbed a boulder for a better view and saw something that stopped my heart. My own tent, back in the clearing, right where I'd left. I had somehow run in a giant circle without realizing it. I yelled, screamed, cursed. Then the wind picked up, and with it came the sound of whispers, not outside me, but inside my head. Voices telling me things I didn't want to hear, things I'd buried, things only I knew. I tried not to listen. I stuffed earbuds in, played music on my phone full blast. That's when the battery, which had been at 89%, drained to 0 in 2 seconds. No warning, just black screen. I tossed the phone and ran again. This time I marked trees with my knife, deep gashes. But when I passed those same trees an hour later, the marks were gone. Instead, someone or something had carved back. Try again. The sun never moved. It just hung there, trapped between morning and noon, casting the same stretched shadows over and over. That was when the hallucinations, or maybe realities, began. I saw my ex-wife standing in the trees. She looked at me and mouthed, "Why didn't you save me?" I saw my dead father sitting by the river, face sunken and pale, asking me for forgiveness. I saw a second version of myself building another tent, talking to someone I couldn't see, then turning and pointing at me with a crazed look. I screamed. I wept. I broke down. But every time I closed my eyes and opened them again, I was back in the same clearing, like the forest was mocking me. Then came the final night. The moon didn't rise. The stars were all wrong, bigger, brighter, closer. The trees shifted slightly every time I blinked, and then, from the shadows, they came. Not people, not animals, shapes, human-sized, but flickering like old TV static, glitching in and out, never fully forming. They moved like puppets with cut strings, no sound, just motion. One leaned down next to my ear and whispered, in a voice layered with thousands of others, "You were never meant to leave." I passed out. I don't remember how long, but when I opened my eyes, I was lying next to my car, parked at the same dead end. My gear was gone. My phone was back in my pocket, 89% battery. The only sign I'd ever gone into the woods was the black moss on my boots. I thought maybe I'd had a psychotic break. Maybe none of it happened. But then I noticed the voice memos app on my phone had a new fill.